to go to the next slide.
Okay. Oh, I wanted to go a long time ago. Sorry about that. So anyway, this is to try to illustrate the fact that as soon as you get to the beginning, you feel like the way I felt like I'm going back in time. I feel like this is the way the world used to look before civilization, if you want to call it civilization, right? Oh, it's working. As recent as 90 years ago, there were people, many hundreds, if not thousands of people living in a valley that never had seen anybody else from the outside world. They thought they were the only people in the world. And then one day in 1934 or something, Mr. Leahy and his friends, who were gold prospectors from Australia, flew in an airplane, landed in the field, and got out and scared the bejesus out of everybody. They thought that their ancestors or ghosts had come. You know, they had no conception that there were other people in the world. And these light-skinned people came and
Out of the sky.
out of the sky, literally, you know, and freaked them out, as you can imagine. Since it was 30s, people that were young people at this time were interviewed in the 60s, I think it was. So they remembered and they told us what it was like. And so this guy, he demonstrated their power. They were totally outnumbered, maybe 500 wild men or whatever you want to say, and 4 guys. But they showed their power by shooting a pig, killing a pig, typical Western civilization power thingy. Now they were looking for gold, but they discovered these people. There's a book and a film out available. This is by the way, this is cutting off the top of my picture. It's called.
It's beyond our control.
First, it's called First Contact. If you want to, you can probably get it on YouTube these days. First Contact, or you can buy the book. I hope it's still available. It's an amazing story of how these people actually really thought they were the only people in the world, and we came and disillusioned them. Anyway, so this is an example of how interesting New Guinea is. It's so remote. We flew in on this plane in 1989 to Port Moresby. And then once you're there, if you want to go anywhere, you either go by van a little bit, or by boat, or by little airplanes. And so there's Deanna just last week. And on a little plane, we landed in grass strips, we landed on dirt roads and stuff to get to these different places that we visited. And when we came out and we're like, wow, look at those people, the people came out and went, wow, look at those people. You know, especially in '89, a lot of women would come up to Deanna and look at, and they're not of tall stature, look up at Deanna's blonde hair, and it was a new thing for them. It's pretty cool. When we flew into Tari, which is in the Eastern Highlands, it's a big center, a big center in the Eastern Highlands. This is how we were greeted. There were hundreds and hundreds of people around the outside of the barbed wire fence at the airport. And then this is the way that they communicate with each other. They have these open markets where they bring their produce. Most of the people in the highlands, especially, and all of the people probably in New Guinea, are more or less farmers. They grow a lot of sweet potatoes and a lot of bananas, things like that.
So Randy, keep in mind you need to speak loud to that speaker.
I'm gonna work on it. Okay. So this is a lady with a pig. Pigs are one of the most valuable items in New Guinea. Everybody that has wealth has pigs, and there's a lot of interculture trauma or drama. I guess drama. Somebody might hurt somebody in one village, and then that village, the person that hurt them owes that village something. Often it might be pigs. We'll give you 6 pigs, they could go away, something like that. And this is an image to demonstrate the kind of the effect of Western civilization on these people. If you remember the picture of the guy at the beginning, First Contact, he was wearing some leaves on the back, and he had feathers in his hair. This guy in the center is basically wearing traditional dress still, but the other people have some Western clothing. And so there's this transition as we come and talk to them and interact with them.
Are those dartboards?
And those are dartboards.
Yeah. More good influences.
Exactly right. And they're really into it because the way they get into little skirmishes with each other with bows and arrows and spears. That's where the technology is. So they love darts. So Wagi Valley, this is one of the most beautiful places we were at in New Guinea in the highlands. This is an example of how much infrastructure is in New Guinea, almost none. And it's really a beautiful place. So we were asked if we'd like to see a little show describing the genesis of this one cultural group's village, how they came about. So this man showed us how he was a farmer and he could make fire. He demonstrated making fire for us. And then he said that they were just peaceful farmers. And one day, while they're farming, some bad people came and tried to get rid of them. And so you see, they got bows and arrows. That's still the technology today for them. And they were fighting them, and they drove them out of their village. So the villagers ran into the jungle, and they fell into the swamp. And when they got out of the swamp, they were covered in mud. And they looked at each other, and they were scary looking. And so they thought, maybe we can scare these guys away. And so they came back, and they attacked them, but mostly they scared them because they looked like goats. And drove the bad guys out of the village. And so that's how they became the Wagi Valley Leadmen. So you can go there and actually see the Wagi Valley people. And we had Deanna, excuse me, Deanna and I even made a Christmas card out of. She and I were with the Wagi Valley people one time. Oh, good. I'm getting a phone call.
It's one of those nights. That's all it is.
Yes, yeah. So, thank you. So we continued on with our big man, just to walk around, kind of check out the scene, and we came across this guy who's a farmer. He wasn't dressed up to show us anything. He was just working his farm. He showed us see how rich I am. I've got all these pigs. He was very proud of that. And here's his wife and grandchildren. And unfortunately, the children's mother had died just a few weeks before in a fire, which is not that unusual in New Guinea. They have a lot of trauma. They die of a lot of infections, injuries, whatever. And in this case, also fire. They live in thatched huts with the fireplace in the middle of the hut, no chimney, which is a bad scene, you know. So anyway, she invited us into her home, and here she is with her grandchildren in her home. She was very proud of her home. And here's some of the kids. And I need to say, most of the pictures of the children and the people, Deanna took. She's a really great photographer as well. She's got a great eye. So she was taking pictures of the people, the flowers, and things like that. And I was trying to take pictures of the animals. So,
What do they do with the pigs?
mostly they trade them. They're like your IRA. You don't want to dip into your battery very often, right? But so feast days, marriages, I assume, funerals, probably that kind of thing. They sacrifice them or whatever. And rarely just let's have bacon for breakfast. Because they are very valuable. The reason they're very valuable is almost, thank you, Ed, there's almost no large animals in New Guinea. There isn't a lot of protein. They're really protein down in New Guinea. So pigs are a big deal. Pigs are non-native, of course, they came from Australia probably, and the Europeans. Anyway, this guy was the chief of this village, and you can see the size of his home, much bigger. He was very proud of this palatial place, but they don't have stuff, you know, like we do. So if he wants to move, he can just move, you know, unlike us. We really roughed it at this place. This is called Ambula Lodge. And this was probably built, I think, for birders from Britain originally, probably when Britain was still controlled. I'm not sure about that. One of the prettiest places I think that we've ever stayed at. And this is above about 5,500 feet in the highlands. It's chilly at night, and it's a spectacular view. Quite a great place. And so this is a great spot for people to go birding. So here's some birds for you birders. These are great wood swallows. So this was a lifer, believe it or not. Definitely a lifer. These are large birds. They're maybe the size of a pigeon. Yeah, they're pretty cool. Pretty cool. This is a tide heron. I just had to throw in a few birds for you guys, And this is an example of what the birds of paradise can get you. This isn't a bird of paradise. This is the Victoria crown pigeon, which is about the size, it's about this big. They're big and really aggressive as well, and really beautiful. They got this giant crown and feathers. This is as close as we came to seeing a bird of paradise in New Guinea. And then we got a cassowary. This is a chick, but this chick was in a home along a river that I'll eventually show you. So cassowaries are also found in Australia, right? Australia and New Guinea. There used to be a land bridge apparently, and so the marsupials and some of these birds cross-pollinated the island in Australia.
I'm sorry.
I hope he's a cat because they tend to wear a lot of feathers. So we said, oh, okay, let's move on. Anyway, I hope he's a cat. This is one of the big sources of protein other than pigs. It's called a couscous. It's a marsupial, also found in Australia. Definitely came across one way or the other. It's like a possum. The marsupial, it's got a prehensile tail, the whole bit. And that's one of their main sources of protein. A banana. This is a cat. Apparently it's almost, for us to find a couscous is almost impossible. But they, again, it's very difficult to move through the habitat. People who move there learn how to do it. And then they have wallabies, just like Australia. So again, this is a marsupial that's cross-pollinated with Australia. Yeah. And so this was actually one where we actually went birding in the morning. One time they said, you want to go birding? And this is near Amber Lodge. But we really found the birds with these guys. So take a look at what they're wearing, and you could probably find 5 or 6 birds of paradise feathers on them, as well as couscous fur and hornbill beak. And then they have some kind of reptile skin on their drums. These are the Huli people. And this is the caste of the Huli people called the Huli Migria. They are by far the most colorful people I've ever experienced. And they're really interesting people. They're the big shots of the village. And what they do is if you're let into the club, you start growing your hair out and you do not touch it and push on it at all for years. And then these guys are sprinkling magic water. They think it's magic water that makes their hair grow even better. And here's a guy demonstrating it's getting to where he can cut his hair off and make it big. And this guy's showing us that they don't want to push on their hair, so they sleep on a stick. If anybody's a chiropractor wants to work in New Guinea, this is the point. Can you imagine sleeping on a stick like that? But anyway, that's what they do to protect their hair. This is an older gentleman with an old traditional wig. So it goes down instead of up, and it's got mostly flowers, some couscous fur, and some feathers. And this is another guy that's a follower of the Grateful Dead, and he has all kinds of birds of paradise studies going on, smoking tobacco. And this is what these guys will do: is get in line and they'll hit their drums and they chant and they bounce up and down, and their leaves flip up and down like bird feathers. So they're imitating the birds of paradise, basically. If you're sick in the Eastern Highlands, these are the doctors you go to. These are the medicine men or whatever, and they basically scare away the evil spirits that are causing the disease for the most part. And I find these guys just phenomenal, just like amazing. And it reminds me of the Plains Indians as far as the headdresses and stuff. To me, it seems seems to be a real similarity there. Anyway, enough of that. Let's go diving. So this is the boat we were on for 11 days in 1989 to scout out dive sites all over New Guinea, up in the northeast part of New Ireland and Caviang. Later, we decided to go for a little nicer boat, and this is the Paradise Fort. It's a really nice big catamaran. It's a Mike Ball boat. Mike Ball's famous for his boats in Australia, and he put this boat in New Guinea. So this is the photo deck on the Paradise Sport. And I want just to say a little word about photography, underwater photography. If you notice, all of these camera rigs are all different ways of going underwater and taking pictures. And I want to show you what I've done and what Deanna's done over the years, real quickly. So Deanna's holding a little camera called the Nikon S5. Nikon made a whole bunch of underwater cameras. They're the only company to do it, starting with the Calypso, which Cousteau invented. And then there's the Nikon S2, 3, 4, and 5. I dove with the 2, 3, and 5. And so that's one rig. This rig is the Nikon RS. So what they did, this is an actual SLR camera that used film. The other ones were all rangefinder cameras. If you guys know, you had to with the Nikon S5, you had to guess how far away the fish was from you, set it on your lens, and then take the picture. A little bit awkward. And then with a real SLR, you could go through the lens and take a photo. So it really made the thing a lot easier. A pretty nice camera. I dove with that for a long time. And then the other one is a regular camera in a metal housing. So this is a housed system. And I went with Nikon F3 and then a D2, a D300, D800, things like that. And then also you can do underwater video. So this is Deanna with her custom video housing, shooting video. Yeah.
That looks really awkward.
You know, it's funny. Yeah, it is. That one really could look really awkward, but it's funny. Once you get in the water, especially if it's balanced out, it's relatively buoyant. You can make them pretty much buoyant, where you can let it go and it might sink a little or go up a little. But it's pretty easy to drag around. I got to the point, Deanna, I think would agree with me that I didn't know how to scuba dive without a camera in my hand. And what do I do with these hands? You know, because I always had.
Randy, is that huge, this turtle?
Well, the turtle looks really big because it's in the foreground. It's a wide angle lens. It's probably this big. Yeah. Okay, so back to this is what a dive site in New Guinea looks like. So the boat pulls up, we get up in the morning, they say, time to get your morning dive, and we look out and this is what we see. So for me, it's spectacularly beautiful.
We have coffee. If you get up and have a cup of coffee.
It's phenomenal food, great food, all kinds of stuff. Every group is different, but sometimes you get out of the water, you take your camera, you get up on the deck and you got hot rolls and hot chocolate and a hot towel. You know, depends on how much money you get them. Right. We didn't rough it too bad. So the people would come up to the boat sometimes to sell their seashells or maybe some live crabs or some food, fruit or something. And occasionally they wouldn't quite get it that, you know, we didn't bring our credit card to this slow diving, you know. But really nice people. This boat came to that spot maybe once a month, once every other month, maybe once every 3 months. Other than that, they never see anybody. So it's this giant white thing shows up from who knows where with these weird people. You know, can you imagine what the effect was on the people? You know, it's interesting. They were very nice, very generous. But let's go diving. There's Deanna going down a reef. And she's a good photographer. She's a really good underwater model. It's not that easy to look good underwater. You kind of do this stuff all the time, and your hair's in your face and everything. She became a very good model and also a great spotter. She would find stuff for me to photograph. Got a good eye. She also has really good sense of direction. So if I was with her, I didn't think I was going to get lost. So this is a typical coral reef in New Guinea, lots of life. Lots of beautiful little fishes. So pretend like they're birds, because this is like, you know, a bird show only for fish. Photographing fish is a whole lot like photographing birds. You're chasing around pretty little things that are moving all the time. These are bannerfish. Another favorite of mine are the cephalopods. This is an octopus that's mimicking a coral reef. As you know, they're really intelligent. And they're great problem solvers, and they're amazing shapeshifters. If you haven't seen the film My Octopus Teacher, you have to see it. It's unbelievable. It's really incredible. And I love octopus. They're so cool. They'll play with you and stuff if you know how to do it. And then in this case, this one's out hanging out. But also a great cephalopod on the cuttlefish. So people with parrots know about cuttlefish because they have a kind of a bone, cuttle bone. But I like them more like this personally. They're really colorful and change colors a lot. They are also very inquisitive and really intelligent as well, related to the octopus. But for the piece de resistance for Deanna and me in the Guinea was we got to dive with a chambered nautilus. Now this doesn't happen very often, believe me. So this was a this was like a once in a lifetime thing. Phenomenal, really great. Be swimming along, diving in maybe shallow water, and you look up and you might see an outrigger. And you find out the kids are out in their outriggers are following your bubbles around. And they're, can you imagine what they're thinking? How did they stay under there so long? So this is a really beautiful little island called Boga Boga. And in World War II, a American B-17 bomber called Blackjack got shot and was coming over these trees. The pilot supposedly tried to land on the shallow reef and didn't quite make it, and ended up at 150 feet down. And this is the wall of the reef. So it's shallow here, an immediate drop off to 150 feet. So making it a perfect dive site for divers, because you can go down the reef and stay oriented to where you are and then find the wreck, as opposed to being out in open ocean, which is where a lot of wrecks are. You're in the open water and you have no frame of reference. So really interesting. This is not a sport dive. It's actually a little too dangerous to do it, but we did it because we're crazy.
How long did you stay down?
Very good question. 8 minutes. We had an 8-minute bottom time to be no decompression. So here you can see at 8 minutes, we come up, stop for 5 minutes at 15 feet. Excuse me, start with 3 minutes at 30 feet and then 5 at 15, and then you come up so you don't get the bends. If you go into decompression, which means you stay too long, you've got a very long thing where you have to sit for like 45 minutes and hope your air lasts while you're sitting, so second, you don't want to do that. So anyway, we did it. We all survived it. It was spectacular. There goes Deanna. She's deciding I'm going to go look at that bomber. And here it is. This is a Blackjack B-17 bomber. And that's Deanna right there. And then this is, yeah, it looks washed out to me. But anyway, this is grayscale. I made this one in grayscale so you can see the contrast a little bit better. I'm not crazy about that thing in the right corner, whatever. And then here's another shot of Blackjack B-17 bomber. So this is one of the all-time great wrecks that I've ever been on. And here's Deanna at the back of the plane. At 8 minutes, I had to go literally pull her off of it because we all probably had a little bit of nitrogen narcosis because we were so deep. And I was saying, it's time to go. And she goes, oh, I'm okay, so let's go. So yeah, she's enthusiastic. It was great. There's lots of wrecks in the Guinea. So this is a freighter, probably maybe not a military vessel, but ships are fun to explore. This is an American bomber called the Betty bomber that didn't do too well in the front end, but the rest of it's still in good shape. This is a Japanese 3-seat fighter bomber with Deanna cut off at the top there, but videotaping it. And here's a close-up of the front. And a cool thing about wrecks is they become artificial reefs and they create a substrate for sea life to grow on. So they're really cool. Here's another, this is probably a Japanese warship. On top of the chambered nautilus and the B-17 bomber, this is number 3 for me as far as unbelievable. This is the Japanese 2-man mini submarine. Bob Halstead, the owner of the Toledo, had found this just before we got on the boat, maybe a few months before. And he said, let's go see if we can dive it. So we got to dive this. This was a secret weapon in World War II. I think one of them was found near the harbor of Pearl Harbor in like 2000 or something. Is that an arm up there? Yes.
Yeah. Talking about that Blackjack.
Yes.
that went into the water just off the reef.
Mhm.
I'm assuming that pilot lost his life.
No,
Oh, he didn't.
if I had another half hour, I could tell you a really cool story. But
Oh, so he was
the
able.
whole crew survived
Oh,
because the people on the island came out in their outriggers and saved everybody while the plane was still starting to settle. They all survived. A lot of them were badly injured. Real quick, the captain, the pilot was saved by a young man, a young boy. 50 years later, 2 years, 1 year, 2 years before we got there in 2005, they had a reunion of the man, the pilot, and the boy that saved him on the island.
Wow.
We got to see the video of the plane taking off, the historical stuff. And there's so many wows about New Guinea, it's just off the charts. That's another wow. Yeah, definitely. So this was a wow. This is very few of these are known to exist, I think. And this one is pretty cool. It's basically a torpedo delivery system. And there's Deanna above it. And there's the torpedo tubes. Pretty cool dive site. And then this is another battleship or some kind of military vessel that's just becoming a coral reef now. Really beautiful. She's swimming through another ship here. And then this is what we do. We go do a dive and then we maybe get along and motor along until we find another village. And you can see here's our dive boat in the background, and we come ashore, walk around, see what's going on. The people along the coast were much more inviting and not so scared or not so put off when we would show up, because they had some experience with boats coming along with people on them. And so we didn't feel any discomfort.
So I'm sorry. So these are their actual homes and that they live in.
Was that, I'm sorry, the homes?
The pictures that you showed, those are the pictures of their homes that they lived in, right?
Yes.
Along the, yeah, they look really nice.
Well, some are nice and some are pretty rudimentary. Yeah,
Okay.
just like LA.
Yeah, yeah, right.
But this, I mean, these kind of scenes to me are just spectacular, really beautiful. And we also, we were into diving a little bit, since I guess nobody's a diver here, but we were on this boat for 11 days and we made 54 dives.
Wow.
Yeah, that's another wow. But it wasn't enough. This was after the 54th dive. Deanna and myself and my married friend Takumi snorkeled to this island between dives.
Wow.
Because we hadn't had enough. Yeah, that's my friend Tack.
Is there anybody living on the island?
Very good question. This apparently was an uninhabited island, but what we found on the island was a Japanese anti-ship gun in the jungle. So it's just an incredible place if you like history too. So, but back to the ocean. Deanna is up there underneath that stuff, and this is the coral reef. Lots of pretty soft corals, gorgonians, rope coral. This is a sea anemone close up. You guys know about sea anemones, I think. The tentacles have stinging tentacles. Tentacles have little stinging cells. They eat little planktonic animals, but some of them can eat fish as well. And they're all kinds of colors. And the fish are really beautiful. A lot of people call them clownfish. There are different kinds of anemone fish. And the anemone fish are immune to the stings of the anemone. And without the anemone, those anemone fish can't survive, and probably vice versa. It's a symbiotic relationship. So it's thought that the fish keeps the anemone clean by eating all the little stuff, and maybe attract other fish to the anemone so the anemone can sting them and eat them in exchange for their protected home. And so this is in the South, we don't have anemone fish and anemones in the Caribbean, the Bahamas, Gulf of Mexico, California. We don't have that, but we have it in the South Pacific, from Hawaii down through Fiji all the way down. We have this in the Pacific. So it's known as spine cheek anemone fish. And in the anemones, there's often these little porcelain crabs as well. And it's felt that it's the same idea. It's a symbiotic relationship. The crab is also probably cleaning the anemone for protection. It's protection in exchange. So I talked about biodiversity. Yes. Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah. I'm wondering how safe it is to go diving there. For example, are there crocodiles?
And I'm not, yes, they have crocodiles, but I never really worried about it. I was probably thrilled when I took a photo of
I think I would worry
it.
about.
Yeah.
He's from Australia.
Oh, you're from Australia, yeah. Well, then yeah, you know about those saltwater crocs. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. We didn't see any crocodiles really there. We weren't too worried about it. We were diving pretty far offshore a lot of the time, and most of our dives were pretty deep. We weren't diving mangroves and shallows too much. But anyway, so there's lots of diversity, like I was saying. In the Caribbean, I think there's 7 species of angelfish. So no matter where you go in the Caribbean, the Bahamas, and you like to find, just like you like to find species of birds, in the Caribbean, Bahamas, there are 7 different kinds of angelfish. There's well over 30 or 40 different kinds of angelfish in the game. So that's an example of the multiplication of species. This is a butterfly fish called a eclipse butterfly. This is a long-nosed butterfly. This is a barred spot butterfly. This is a chevron butterfly. They're all beautiful little jewels, aren't they? I think they're just gorgeous, yeah.
How many parts?
Oh, everywhere from, what was that? Bruin, yeah. This is a Bruin angelfish. It's a soft one. He's a real good shooter. He's a guy. We call him Jaime. But, and that's an inside joke for us UCLA fans. Anyway, this is how deep we're 10 feet to 150 feet, probably something like that. I mean, you could probably find some. So there's fish up in the real super shallows too. You know, we're all over the map on depth.
Like, how big is that fish?
Little guys. Oh, that's even better.
Okay.
Thank you. You can enjoy the color a little bit. Yeah, that's what I was talking about, the darkness. Anyway, this is a bicolored angel. This is a blue girdled angel, much larger. This is much larger, 6-banded angels. This is a, you know how you get life birds, right? This is a life fish for me. It's a barred angel, little tiny guy that I had never even seen a picture of before until I took this picture. It's pretty cool. And this is one of the prettier ones, I think. It's a regal angel.
So do you have piefish under the water?
Piefish, yeah. Right, yeah.
Identify all.
Yeah. Actually, that's the beauty of photography, just like with birds. If you photograph it, if you don't know what it is, you have a chance to call Jonathan, and he'll tell you what it is. Right, John?
Yeah.
So if I didn't know, I couldn't, there's a lot of books that you have to be looking up, sure. Regal angelfish, and I'm not sure if I think this is the prettiest angel or this is the prettiest angel. This is the imperator angelfish. And for a long time, everybody thought this was a different species of angelfish. They had different names. If you went to an aquarium store, they would say, well, I don't know what they'd call it. Turns out one of them lived in an aquarium long enough to turn into that. And it turns out that's a juvenile imperator angelfish. And it's a little guy, and they are a lot like warblers, or even more like a ruby-crowned kinglet. They never stop. You know, they're all over the place. Yeah. So here's Deanna harassing a long-fin spadefish. She's just rubbing her thumb and finger together. She's not feeding it because we don't really like to feed stuff too much. But somebody had fed this fish because as soon as we hit the water, right on top of this, it stayed with us the whole time. So there's a lot of interesting critters in Guinea, especially in the ground on the bottom, in the sand or in the substrate. This is a stargazer snake eel. And there's a lot of scorpion fishes. And so these things have poison barbs and stuff. So you definitely want to be careful where you put your hands down and where you put your knees down. You want to know where you're landing before you land.
Interesting, they're in the similar family as our local scorpion.
Yeah.
The scorpion fish.
Yeah. The California scorpion fishes. Yeah, same group. This is a spot fin lion. This is a lacy scorpion fish. It's a big fish, and it's virtually impossible to see them on the reef, unless you're Deanna, because I mean, you'll look and you'll see it looks like a coral reef. It'll be sitting out in the open. And there's the eye right there.
Where's the sun?
This is the mouth. Right there's the mouth, and so that's the fish's body. And even when it's out like that, it's hard to see, right? Picture it underwater. And they come in all colors: deep purple, red, yellow. So these are the kind of. This is like finding what's a really great bird. that you would like to find. That's really great. Quick, on the clock. Pick anything, it doesn't matter.
I'd like to see a Quetzal.
A what?
A Quetzal.
Oh, Quetzal, yeah, Quetzal, okay. This is like finding a Quetzal, you know, I mean, it's the Quetzal, there it is. This is the one, we would go and dive, that's the dive, looking for one of these.
What's it saying again?
It's called a lacy scorpion fish. Its genus is Rhinopius. Anyway, yeah, so that's really great, really great. And then this is one of my favorite bottom, this is an ambush predator called a crocodile flathead, for obvious reasons. And they are large, they're like this big. And again, the first time I saw one of these, I saw its eye, and I thought I was going to photograph a nudibranch. Turned out that when I got up to it, it exploded off the reef. It scared the heck out of me. I had never seen it before, so I wasn't expecting it. Pretty cool, crocodile flathead. What's that?
Question.
Yes.
Yeah, were you in both Papua New Guinea and West Papua?
Yeah, I've been to West Papua, yes. Yeah,
I'm wondering, is the rebellion in West Papua causing any disruption to the environment? Let's say to the animal life and the plant life. Is the rebellion in West Papua causing disruption?
I think it's very likely. I think a pandemic killed all the tourism possibilities for the whole island, as well as all over the world. And as soon as the money dries up, then people do what they have to do. And so instead of saving the animals, for instance, they have to eat them or something. Yes. So I would say yes, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe the rebellion is also keeping tourists away.
Exactly right. That's the big problem. Yeah. It's scary, you know. Anyway, moving right along. So I was going down the scale of fish that you can identify from that lionfish and the crocodile, or the Rhinopius crocodile flathead, to this thing. This is absolutely, it does not look like any kind of fish at all, does it? There's its eye, there's its mouth. All of that stuff on it is actually part of its body. It's not stuff that's accumulated, it's grown there. This is called a devil scorpion fish. Virtually impossible to see them, and you know, and they just lay sitting in the sand. So
what will it sting like a scorpion?
this one would probably sting a little bit more than a scorpion.
Oh,
yeah, pretty. You don't want to be stung by any of these guys. But on the other hand, you can just enjoy the beautiful reef with these glassy sweepers. Deanna's videotaping, and then we're off going to a new dive site. Love the scenery. I hope you noticed my title slide with sunrise and volcano. So at 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 in the morning on the boat, we go, get up really quick. And we all jump up and goes, look. The volcano is erupting and the sun is coming up at the same time. That was really cool. And very indicative of the beginning. It's sort of like the old, prehistoric times. Another dive site, this is called Dinah's Beach. Bob Halstead married a New Guinea lady named Dinah, and named this dive site after her. We visited another village. We got little visitors that visited us. These little kids, they live in those outriggers almost as soon as they're born. So they're very good at it. Deanna and I tried. When we got in one, and immediately flipped it. They're not very stable at all. I love this photograph. It reminds me of, this is 1,000 years ago, right? The Garden of Eden or something. And you can kind of hear the kids screaming and laughing and having a wonderful time.
They eat fish, don't they?
They eat fish.
Yeah.
Now, the coastal people have fish protein.
Right.
As much as they can. They don't have a lot. Like we were asked to bring fish hooks if we wanted to give them something. Bring pencils, paper, fish hooks. Yeah, they don't have much. Yeah. So they get what they can.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, the people that were coming to sell you jewelry, I mean, what would you give them? If they don't use money.
We would give them Kina and Toya, which are the voluntary units. We had Kina.
Oh, they actually do have money?
Oh yeah, New Guinea's got Kina and Toya, the dollars and cents or something like that. And that comes from this. I'll show you. There's a big shell that they wear around the neck. It's a Kina shell. So it's kind of like people wearing gold jewelry. It's money.
Oh, it's shells.
It's a big shell. I did
so
go back.
Kina is a shell.
Yeah, the Gina shell and the tortoise shell, but then they made the currency.
Oh,
So
so they,
there's paper money.
oh, it's actually.
50
Oh,
kilo.
okay. It's named after.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we visited this. This was one of the nicer coastal villages. And this is their schoolhouse. You can see it's quite rudimentary. And the date there, I think, is July 21st, 1989. So I'm not lying to you. See, it's right there. And so back to the dive sites. Back to the fishes. These are longfin spadefish. And this is a royal bodyback. Yeah, pretty cool. And this is a mandarin rope. So I could show you, you know, I have probably 500 pictures of 500 different fish. They're all this gorgeous. So I just picked out a few. This is a pipefish related to a seahorse. And these little guys are harlequin shrimp. They're real little, maybe 2 or 3 inches each. They are fierce predators and they are beautiful, incredible colors. What they do is they'll inject the sea star with some kind of venom of some sort and paralyze the star. And then they dine on the star for weeks. So this star used to have 5 legs or 6. Yeah, so it's a good deal if you can get it. They don't have to go for food for weeks. So
Sea star.
this is a sea star. It's actually, I think, well, no. Anyway, and they're eating the sea star.
Oh, okay.
They don't have to go anywhere for food. This is a strawberry grouper. And this is a red-breasted wrasse. They're related to parrotfish. This is the biggest pufferfish that I think exists. It's probably this long. And so that's 2.5 feet long. And they swallow water if they're threatened and they'll swell up. So some people call them more balloon fish or pufferfish. This is called the map puffer. They're little eels, not so little, actually pretty long, maybe a foot to 18 inches long, called ribbon eels. And much like the Imperator angel, this is a fun aquarium. Saltwater aquarium people love this in their tanks. They're very mellow and they're really beautiful. And for a long time, they thought this was a different species. This is the black ribbon eel. Turns out the black ribbon eel, if it lives long enough, becomes a blue ribbon eel. So it's the juvenile of the blue ribbon eel. This is a more regular eel called a fimbriated moray eel. So there's another thing that underwater photographers love to photograph nudibranchs. Nudibranchs are like sea slugs in your garden. They're gastropod. They're called nudibranch because of the naked gill, the naked branch. That's where they get the oxygen out of the water. And they have rhinopores that taste the water so they can find their food, right? But they're basically a slug. And they're in the coral triangle. They're unbelievably beautiful. The other thing that's fun about them is they're really slow. So you can take pictures very easily.
A little easier than a kinglet. Yeah.
Much. So here's some nudibranchs. Just I could show you 50, but here's 6 few.
Wow.
I think they rival birds for beauty. they're pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah. And they eat, a lot of them will eat stinging cells, stinging invertebrates, and then incorporate the stinging cells in the body. So much like a monarch butterfly and its caterpillar, its larva, they're toxic. And so the fish learn not to eat the nudibranchs. That's why they're so gaudy. There's a saying in diver lore saying if it's really beautiful or really ugly, don't touch it. And for both reasons, yeah. This is a large nudibranch. It's nudibranch go. It's maybe 6 inches. I like that one. That's really pretty.
Oh my God.
And this is just the tip of the iceberg.
So it's alien.
So there are people that totally specialize in nudibranch photography, and that's all they're interested in. And they'll just hunt them out.
We do have a couple in California, one that's similar to that.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, Southern California kelp beds is really good for nudibranch. Yeah. The elegant eelid, or the Spanish shawl nudibranch, Something like that.
Excuse me, did you do a lot of research before you went on this trip to know what all this stuff is?
No, I just soaked it up into instantly. It's
Just kind
no
of
big
like,
deal. Actually, a whole bunch of us, these photos were taken a while ago, right? And I have been diving for a long time, and so, what is that? And then you pull up the board, oh, it's that. So yeah, I mean, it's not like I instantly knew everything. But I didn't do a lot of research before,
oh, you did.
but then I took a lot of photographs, and then you do research.
I mean, I'd want to do research to know what not to touch.
Oh, well, I mean, I did a lot of diving before we ever went on any travel or tropical trips. And you kind of learn all that kind of stuff. I learned it in California.
Well, shots you're not supposed to touch it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's better not to touch anything, exactly right. So, yeah, pretty, huh?
Oh,
And then, I know you think I'm crazy, but another thing that I love to do is to swim with barracuda. Sometimes there'll be a school of hundreds of barracuda, and sometimes they're swimming straight, sometimes they're circling like a tornado. If you're really mellow and don't explode bubbles all the time, and you can kind of move into the school, they'll accept you after a while if they figure you're not going to hurt them. And then I just kind of cruise along. Deanna and I've done this in the Galapagos and Cocos Island, where you just swim with a school of fish and become one with the school. It's pretty cool. It's very cool. That's hard to do with birds. Oh, that's got knowledge, right? Because they're birds. But it is pretty cool. It's a pretty cool field. A really cool field. Those are not really big. They're like that.
Okay.
Pacific barracuda aren't nearly as interesting as far as danger as the Caribbean, Bahamas, Gulf of Mexico great barracuda, which is a solitary predator. Pretty darn ferocious and definitely a lot smarter than a shark. Has a lot more hardware than a shark, and it's like a rocket ship. Great barracuda can be really interesting. Yeah. These guys not so much. And mostly even sharks that are schooling generally aren't feeding. They're not looking to eat. And we aren't really part of anybody's food chain. We, especially a diver with a tank on their back blowing bubbles, we do not look like food to anybody. So here's Deanna photographing some snappers. Here's some blue bar snappers. And if you've ever gone to a sushi bar and had giant clam, this is giant clam. And you can see how big that guy is. They're really interesting, beautiful animals. And the color is from the algae in the mantle, and they're all the colors of the rainbow. Everyone's a different color. They're really amazing. And they don't close up completely and trap your leg like in the movies. I've learned that anything to do with animals in the movies is a lie. Unless it's my octopus teacher. And there are sharks, of course. And so this is a little white tip reef shark. He's got a remora on his stomach. Most of the big fish have remoras. This is a shark that's a little more interesting. It's called a gray reef shark. Probably 5.5, 6 feet long. This is a very healthy shark, this individual. My favorite shark in the Guinea is this one. It's called a silver tip reef shark. And this is a cool historical photograph because the lady on the left is the lady that invited us on this trip. Her name is Nancy Sefton. She's a famous marine biologist, underwater photographer. She won the Nogi Award. She's wearing a t-shirt and Levi's. That's the idea where we are in time. And that's how I used to dive in the Caribbean, t-shirt and Levi's. No life with swimsuits at that time. And that's Dinah Halstead, the wife of Bob Halstead on the boat Toledo. This brings back such cool memories. Thank you for having me. And this is a silver tip reef shark up close. I think they're absolutely gorgeous. They're so sleek. Perfect hydrodynamics. I almost said aerodynamics.
What was he doing? Just sitting there, or?
No. They were coming. We were sitting on a coral reef, and this is a feeding station. So, excuse me, a cleaning station. So fish will come up to a cleaning station to be cleaned by other fish. Big sharks, manta rays, turtles, they all do that. If you can find a cleaning station, then you just kind of sit down and wait for the show to begin. That's how you get pictures of hammerhead sharks. Yeah. So this one, you know, for frame of reference, wide angle lens is probably 28mm lens. So this fish is 3 feet away from it to take that picture. If it's more than 5 feet, it looks like a little minnow. Yeah. This, I think Deanna will agree with me, is the scariest fish in the sea. Is that right, Deanna? Say yes.
Yes.
Thank you. This is the Titan triggerfish, about that big. And it's got a, I like to say it has a Cuisinart for a mouth. And it's got a temperament of a rabid pit bull. When they're nesting, they are unbelievably scary fish because they'll have a nest on the bottom. You can swim, you can be 20 feet above it, not even see it, right? And swim over it, and it will come up and attack you. And how many times have we been run out of the water by a Titan trigger?
Quite a few.
Okay, we've literally been run out of the water. They'll chase you all the way to the boat and keep trying to bite you. And we've literally crawled out of the reef and we're kicking it, and the water is this deep and it's on its side trying to bite us. Like they go insane. I'm not making it up.
How big is that?
Maybe 3 feet. So it's like a pit bull. When they bite you, they do like this and just go through your tissue like crazy. We were in the Philippines when a Titan trigger bit a dive guy and they had to airlift him out because he almost took out his eye. That's the scary fish right there. So that's when you want to know where they are and avoid them. But I took that picture, it's like, 2 feet away or something. So, this is another triggerfish that's a lot mellower, prettier, nice one. It's called a pink-tailed trigger. And horrible scenery, just awful.
Yeah.
Terrible skies. So last bit of our trip is Deanna and I and our friends Tak and Mide had a little adventure. When you go to New Guinea, it's not a vacation, it's an adventure. And we signed up to go up a river system to visit some of the people living along this floodplain in the Sepik River Valley. Completely different kind of habitat. And we hooked up with a Australian importer-exporter guy who said, oh yeah, I can arrange this. He arranged it for us. So we got a log, dugout canoe with an outboard. And so the 4 of us with our 2 guides and our luggage were in that tree, basically. And he was in another one with his guides. And we floated up this river for about an hour, hour and a half, something 2 hours, 3 hours. And at one point he waves and they turned right and our guides kept going. And our guides didn't speak English and we did not speak Papua New Guinea. And so we had an adventure. Here's Deanna and Tak and Mide with our guides going up the river. It's a tributary of the Karawari River. And at one point, anyway, they left us at one point in the afternoon. And we weren't communicating. So we pulled up, we got out, and after we got our stuff out, they backed up and took off.
Oh my God.
And talk about being up a river without a paddle. We really were, and they left us overnight. We had no idea what was going to happen. They left us in, there was an adventure. And we were in something like this, only not nearly as nice. And I could tell you a few more stories about that, but that was enough for that. So we did have an adventure. On the way to being dumped, we would go ashore periodically. We needed to patch the leaks in the tree with mud. So they would pull up shore, get out the machete, get some mud and patch up the holes. And then we'd get back in and continue on. And so we met this lady and her son and her husband that were just along the river. This was their lifestyle. And there they are as we were leaving. There was an outboard behind that gray thing there. So this is this is how they live their life. And we visited a village have you heard of Margaret Mead, the anthropologist? Yeah. This is the village she did a big study of, one of the villages. We got to go to that village. And that's called the House Tambanin. And it's the men's house, basically. This is an ancient House Tambanin, pre-Christianity home for the men. We noticed a lot of misogyny, major misogyny. Here's an example. The men lived here, and the women and the children and the pigs lived there. That's how we did it. Actually, we were told that even when we were there recently, relatively recently. Men do not look women in the eye. They don't trust them, etc. That whole, it's a whole thing going on there. It's interesting.
That's, I mean, it's a beautiful big structure. They have a
Unbelievable,
road.
unbelievable
Yeah,
structure.
I mean, so they don't seem that backwards.
No, no, I mean, they're not backward. They've been there for thousands of years,
Yeah.
surviving, like Survivor, right? I mean, they don't have it, everything they have is there, and they've learned how to do it. I mean, I do not look at them as backward at all. They
Yeah.
just aren't,
It's not industrial.
they're not, they're not
So
industrial,
do
right?
they have schools too?
Well, I showed you that one
That
little
one,
thing.
do all of it? Do they
Well, so
all-
now, if you're talking today,
Uh-huh.
so I'll go back up for a second. They've said that except for a few divers and birders, the only people that go to the Guinea are missionaries, miners, and mercenaries. And so, yeah, and so there are missionaries. And so the missionaries say you got to put your clothes on, you got to do this, you got to do that stuff, And so that's where some of this schooling comes in as a strategy. But most of the schooling is, how do you shoot a bird, or how do you catch a this or that, or how do you catch a fish?
But there is a big city, Port Moresby is a big city.
Right. That's true. Port Moresby is a big city with infrastructure, schools and all that. But the people who live in the country don't have much opportunity to get to Port Moresby.
Right, not a lot of iPhones or Fitbits probably.
Not a lot. Anyway, so this is a nice condo complex in this thing. This is an upscale homes. In this case, you can tell it's in a floodplain. That's why they're on stilts. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, regarding, you say, the men live on the top floor,
Yeah.
women, children.
That was in the old days, yeah.
So that was traditional.
Correct.
Now, didn't a married man and his wife live together?
They do, but the women, I don't know that they habitate in the same structure. And that's even today because, I'm assuming not a lot has changed, especially out in the bush, so to speak. When we were there, the women that we visited in the farms and stuff, they have their own homes. And the men and the boys stayed in one home.
So does that mean the average person is homosexual?
I didn't say they didn't reproduce.
Lots of kids.
There's lots of kids. Lots of
At this
kids.
point in time,
Yeah.
to actually get married, there's also paperwork that they have to do too.
Yes.
There's also paperwork.
Uh-huh.
Because the way I know is because I used to work at county recorder, and that's where they process the marriage paperwork.
Ah, okay.
And there's only one place in LA that does that,
Very interesting.
registrar recorder.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this is dinner on the Parawari River, and these people are cooking sago palm. Sago palm is an incredibly important plant for the people. A lot of people in the Guinea, but as far as we can tell, along the river, this is kind of like the bison was to the plains. They use every bit of it for all kinds of stuff, and they're making sago palm patties out of it. Retried them as well, and it's pretty bland.
Randy, is
Yes.
there any significance to the face painting?
I don't know what that significance is, to tell you the truth, because we just pulled up and they were there and took pictures. We didn't have we weren't able to communicate. Our guides were we couldn't talk to our guides, couldn't ask them questions. Real quick on the Sago Promise, we're going up the river, and all of a sudden we hit a mayfly explosion, and the air was filled with these big, juicy mayflies. And our guides jumped up and started grabbing them and eating them like crazy. It's a source of protein. And then they were making mayfly tacos, basically, and they haven't worked. Yeah, I mean, because you can tell they have kind of a hard life. The children have let them have a swollen belly, berry, and all that stuff. It's a challenging lifestyle for sure. And this is the most dangerous animal in the world. It's responsible for millions of deaths every year. By its side, a great white shark swims through. So that's not my photograph. I took this off the web, but I believe this in my heart. And so just the shark fin soup thing. So you know about shark fin soup, right? They catch big sharks, cut off their fins, dump them back in the water to die. They're wiping out the predators on the reef, which is wiping out the reefs. They're just like wolves, coyotes, bears, cougars. We need those top predators to keep the environment going correctly, right? To me, it's one of the biggest abominations there is, the shark fin soup trade. The shark fin creates a thickening agent for the soup. Doesn't involve anything to do with flavor. And it's estimated 70 million sharks are killed per fins every year, which is absolutely disgusting. I don't want to end on a negative, so, but I always try to put in something in the shows, right? So there's a shark. That's a very serious shark. That's a tiger shark. And that's Rhonda, a friend of ours. And we went on a tiger shark photo expedition. This is the kind of thing I don't necessarily recommend.
No.
It wasn't the safest thing in the world, but we had 5.5 days of diving with tiger sharks like this. This was in the Bahamas. And we all survived it. And it was quite an experience. So this is an indication that sharks aren't really going to eat us. Right? It's usually an accident. And it's usually you're on the surface or in shallow water. Like in Florida, everybody with their white legs is walking in this turquoise ocean, you know, the dawn and dusk, and the bull shark puts in and bites somebody. That's a lot of the shark attacks are like that. We're also surfers in Hawaii. They're on the surface. Sharks feed from the bottom up, and they see this, and they go, oh, it's food. You know, they don't see a human or like. When we're scuba diving, they see it, so we don't look like food very much. But so anyway, this is the plug sharks, and not all horrible predators. Yes.
That shark there, is the fish stabilizing himself with the ends?
Oh, that's a possibility. That's a possibility. Yeah,
I'd like to see her picture.
Well, I have the same picture. I didn't show you that one, but actually, this fish actually bumped me in the stomach, and I got up in the water and bounced on his back. At one point, I thought, okay, I'm dying, and then I didn't die. So. Anyway, this is my website if you'd like to see the other of my photographs. And that's the end. Questions? Questions? Yeah.
Wow.
I had a
What was
question.
that?
How do they- It's like women are.
Good question.
How fine is it tourists, they like tourists, and you bring gifts. And just as Randy said earlier, the first time we were here in capacity, we thought we were Hollywood, we were tall and like.
And we were incredibly good looking.
Yeah. But maybe not by next year.
Maybe not. You haven't
No
seen
paint
it.
on your face, Rin. Were you always? Randy.
You married Randy.
Well, you know what? That was a big one. You know, the funny thing about this, if you know how to scuba dive properly, and you don't do stupid things like dive with tiger sharks, it's not that risky. It's when you don't know what you're doing or you're. Plus, I'm not an adrenaline junkie at all.
No.
The reason I like to dive with tiger sharks is because it's so beautiful and such an experience. It's like going and seeing an elephant. Yeah.
So even that night that the guide stopped you at your condo.
We ate canned.
And spaghetti and peas are on the shelf. So it was there, yeah.
There was some canned food, and there was one electric light bulb, and there was a mosquito screen all the way around it. And we were in a meadow, and there was a village on this side of the river, all around us in the jungle, and there was a village, different village, on the other side of the river, they were warring. And we were like on stage. We were like on stage. Everybody knew we were there. It was exciting. There were more mosquitoes inside than outside.
So you say you've been there 3 times,
Yes.
similar locate, I mean, not maybe the exact same places. But do you see a major change in the changes?
Only in Port Moresby.
You know,
And the first time we went, until I could talk for a half hour about our first experience in the airport at Port Moresby. We were told to stand back to back, keep your hands in your pockets on your passports and your money, stand back to back until the big man shows up in the car so we can walk a few feet, to get in the van to go to the highly protected one hotel that was safe. That was Port Moresby. do not go out at night, do not walk in the street, blah, blah, blah. That was then, now it's even worse, apparently, as far as that is spread. But then,
Experience outside of the cities.
outside the city, if you're on a boat, diving, no big deal, no pilot. Actually, there are pilots, but we didn't have pilots. But as long as you, and again, the coastal peoples, I never felt any issue with coastal peoples. You just didn't want to walk around in the jungle without a big deal. You know, because they're much like, I mean, it's probably politically incorrect, but I don't know. They're much like maybe farmers in Texas that have no trespassing. Martin Byhauer, we went birding with him in Texas, and he said, by the way, this is in California. If it says no trespassing, and you trespass, they'll shoot you. They won't come out and say, get off my property. No, let me shoot you first.
I've seen some signs that no trespassing, survivors will be prosecuted.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so it's possible these people live in, they don't have a lot, and they work hard for what they have. And some stranger comes in, they don't actually. So the big man comes in, hey, everything's really cool. And then they just want to pray. Yeah. So the changes were at the airport. The second time we went in 10 years later, big fancy airport, as opposed to first time, which was not a big fancy. Is that right? Yeah. But we could, I could do another 2 hours wild stories about it.
Well, just as, what's your plan for going to Moscow? We talked about it a couple months ago, finally making progress.
Yeah.
Hey, Randy, so we've got a question in the chat
Yes. Oh God.
by Martin Byhauer.
Oh, Martin.
Yeah.
I referenced you. Hello.
Said, amazing. Please tell Randy I watched remotely. Wondered if he knows what it would take to see birds of paradise there.
Yeah. There you might, for instance, we saw a bird of paradise in West Papua. We got up at like 5 in the morning, got in a boat, went to some place, hiked up, and then sat and looked up the trees. And as the sun came up, one red bird of paradise did his thing, and we saw him for a few seconds. And that was the easiest chance we had. So it's a real challenge to see them, as far as I know. The National Geographic photographer and videographers did that wonderful show about the 39 species of the birds of paradise. We got to see them live at Nat Geo in Santa Monica. They spent how many years with it?
A lot of years.
Like 5.5 years to see all 39 species.
We did see one, a bird of paradise, when we went to Underwater, and we went on that walk, King of Saxony.
Oh, the King of Saxony, I forgot about that. We did see a King of Saxony in that book. Thank you.
Really far away. You
Very,
can see it 'cause of the long-
very challenging. Hi, Martin. Good to see you.
Yes, regarding West Papua,
Yeah.
I know that West Papua has the world's biggest gold and copper mine.
Yeah.
And that mine is causing a tremendous amount of pollution in the local rivers because of the waste
Arsenic.
from the mine. Arsenic, is that what it is? So arsenic is used in processing.
Nice.
So,
Just like in Peru. Everything in Peru.
so you did hear about the mine polluting the local rivers.
I don't recall us hearing about that when we were there. Again, this is, well, we were in West Papua 2012.
Yeah, I think it's been going on much longer.
Yeah, we weren't exposed to that. We were on a little island. All we thought about was diving. Anyway, any other questions? Great, thank you.
Where's the next trip going?
Maine.
Yeah.
We're gonna next in
Next time is a
we
trip.
got Maine, wood countries.
Well, you'll catch some
Want me to go?
lobsters, no doubt.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
What it is, we've got a different cable connecting the computer to this.
Well,
What a great presentation.
Please.
Fabulous. Let me say a word or two, if you don't mind. As you know, our chapter has been working in support of ADOPTA, which is the conservation organization in Panama. And and others have been interested in a return trip to Panama. Some of us went down in 2019, and we had a chance to see a research station and some of the work that the doctor is doing in eastern Panama, where they have Guido, who runs the organization, has acquired 1,500 acres on top of a mountain in the border between the state of Panama and Darien. And this is the cloud forest that he's preserving. Well, he's recently received a large donation in western Panama, and he has set up a research station there that we have helped support the construction of that research station. So I've been talking with Guido about a return trip, and he suggested that we go down in early November and visit in western Panama, go to Bocas del Toro. This is a map of part of Panama. Anyway. This is the western portion where we were originally. This is